Okay, hi guys. Welcome back to another tutorial, this time on HematPath. And thank you so much for all your wishes, your messages, and yeah, some of you have asked me for some help also, which I'm of course going to do in the near future. Rest assured. Yes, you can contact me for any sort of guidance or help that you want, even if it is regarding publication. One of you has contacted me from Patna for help regarding I'm going a list of journals, good journals where you can publish in pathology. I'm going to do that today. Once I finish with this tutorial video on Messenger, I'm going to be messaging you a list of good journals, very good journals in pathology, both international and national. And you can discuss with me the properties of such journals. Also, you can discuss with me what the scope of journals is, what's the importance of research for a PG in pathology, and why you need paper publication, why you need projects in your name, and how those things are going to help you in the long run. Okay, so that we can discuss on Messenger. The one, if you're listening to me, then this person knows who he was who contacted me for the help, and I'm going to help you through and through, and hopefully you'll be able to publish your good work in a good journal. So moving ahead, I'll be soon finishing with cytopath. I have started preparing histopathology tutorials now. I'll be starting with breast, and histopathology tutorials will be a little different from um, your cyto and hemat. Why? Because hematology and cytopathology, or even fluid cytology, is pure cell study. But histopath is the ultimate thing. It gives you the structure. So you won't get confused too much until and unless there are tumors involved in the pathology. But you should know the approach and the extra ancillary investigations for each lesion that you encounter. So moving ahead, today in anemias, as you know, we want inherited bone marrow failures. So today what I'm going to be taking up is congenital dyserythropoietic anemia. Now the word congenital dyserythropoietic anemia means it is inherited. It is when a baby is born, it is born with this problem. This erythropoietic, the word means there is some dysbiosis in the erythroid lineage which is causing the anemia. The inheritance pattern of this is autosomal recessive. Of course, there's failure in the terminal steps of erythropoiesis, and whenever there is erythropoiesis defect, there will be anemia. The liver can be involved, and you might see degenerated cells in the bone marrow. Having said that, CDA is one such lesion where you have to remember the genetic mutations which are attached to that particular type of CDA. Again, CDA, as per the basic textbook that you read, is of three types mainly, with a new four type discovered. However, certain latest research states that there are six types of CDAs, with the fourth type, the fifth type, etc., having subparts to it. However, the crux of the entire thing that you need to remember is CDA means patient will be having anemia with certain features and nothing else, because it is a mutation in the erythroid lineage and no other lineage. Okay, this table is from the net. The most three common types of CDA. So this, what it does is it combines the peripheral smear, the tests, and the blood smear features of CDA. A easier table is that given is a one. Maybe आगे I'll show you, given in Tejinder Singh sir's book. So blood smear in all of these. Okay, now this my practical points that I want to tell you is that CDA is most commonly confused with megaloblastic anemia or combined nutritional deficiency anemia. So clinically, when a child comes to you who's of young age, say 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and the child comes to you and he's coming with unresponsive anemia to hematinics with plus minus musculoskeletal deformity, think of CDA. I mean, think of IBMF first. Then if you send a peripheral smear and you get a picture with dysbiosis and extreme megaloblastic anemia like features, then you have to think of could it be CDA before you think of B12? Because you have given him hematinics. In India, a B12 and iron deficiency is very common. So you have given him the treatment. He or she is not responding to the problem, to the treatment. So it has to be something more than this. Another reason why it can be a megaloblastic anemia, yet the child might not respond, and is because you have not caught the root cause of it, that is malabsorption diseases. So that is not exactly a differential of CDA, because in CDA you normally get a lot of musculoskeletal problems, but I mean, not always a child with CDA will have it, but you might get something. But a case of malabsorption, if it comes to you, will give you problems like bloating, fatty stool, foul smelling stool, and that is more of fat malabsorption is not there. Then some of you might say, but B12 is water soluble. Agreed. So I'm just telling you that in general, when there's malabsorption, there's some gastric features like too much acidity, gastritis, etc., which or history of alcoholism in adults, which is not there in CDA. CDA, the child is okay, he's feeding, but still has anemia. Okay. So blood smear will show megaloblastic features like anisopoikilocytosis and basophilic stippling. Hemoglobin will range between 6 to say normal in CDA3 and 6 in say CDA1. MCV will be raised or normal. RDW will be markedly raised, so you will think it could be a combined nutritional deficiency. Reticulocyte response can be normal to a little less. It is not completely absent. And always, whenever there is dysbiosis in erythroid lineage, the erythroid cells die. And when they die, LDH is raised. Okay. Haptoglobin, it is not iron deficiency anemia, so we will not discuss that. Ferritin might be raised because of two causes. Mainly when there's anemia, you are giving them treatment when the person does not need iron. So that is one cause. Anti-I antigen hemagglutinin test, when you do, is strong to normal in all of these three variants. Then you do SDS page test for CDA type 2 to see band 3 or abdominal migration. Hemocistinuria is not applicable. So moving ahead. This is an easier table, and what I want to show you is the mutation. Type 1 has CDAN1. So you remember it like that. 1 has CDAN1, 2 has SEC23B, and the most complex name is for the third one. So this is for your MCQ. Normally, when we go for a light microscopic feature of the erythroid lineage, megaloblastic feature and intranuclear bridging. Let me draw it and show it to you. That supposing these are two RBCs, okay, and you must have seen those PGs who see a lot of MDS. You see the bridging of these two RBCs very commonly. You see that there are cytoplasmic wisps from both these NRBCs which are bridging. This you must have seen commonly. Now what happens in CDA is, I'm going to draw another diagram, is that in an NRBC where the nucleus is still remaining like this, there is thin intranuclear bridge. This, if you see even one, that will be 100% sure that it is CDA. Okay. Apart from that, what you get to see is in type 2 there's a normoblastic reaction, but a lot of binucleate and multinucleate cells. And in type 3, what you get is a gigantoblast. So what is a binucleate or multinucleate NRBC? Is that one NRBC normoblast with multiple nuclei. Okay. And binucleate or trinucleate appears something like this. This is also there in MDS. So don't confuse CDA with MDS, because only look, MDS has only anemia feature, but most of the times you will get a trilineage hematodysphosis. You won't get such marked megaloblastic peripheral blood smear, and of course then there's HAMS test and anti-I test and electron microscopy to help you out. Skeletal deformities is not very common in MDS, and young children do not commonly get MDS. Please do remember that it is rare in them. So yeah, so this is a binucleate or a trinucleate. This is how the nucleus looks. And a gigantoblast is, let me just rub this out. Yeah, over here. Here, okay. A gigantoblast is a very, very large erythroid cell, like large as if it is a megakaryocyte. Okay, and you get such multiple nuclei in that large erythrocyte, sometimes up to 6 to 8, 10 nuclei, and then that is known as a gigantoblast. Plus you get pseudo-Gaucher cells. In type 3 also you get these gigantoblast and multinucleate cells. Electron microscopy, Swiss cheese appearance. Have you seen the cartoon Tom and Jerry? The cheese that appears in that with holes, that is Swiss cheese. With pores in the, that is what it is. There is pores in the erythroid lineage nuclear membrane. In type 2, remember 2 में 2 बहुत आता है. There's double nuclear membrane, and 3 has no specific change. The HAMS or HEMPAS test will just come positive in type 2 in 30% cases, and TI, as I'd shown you before, is strong in all of them. So these are the images now. You see a lot of megaloblastic change over here. Let me just change the color to red. You see almost a 4 nucleate lobulation over here. There's dyspoesis, although here it is in myeloid lineage, but 1 to 2 can appear. Here you see a lot of, see, multinucleate kind of erythroid lineage cells which are mature. The late series show a lot of multinucleation, so this could be type 2. Fine. Then this is the Swiss cheese appearance that you see, and then these are the gigantoblasts of type 3. This is binucleation with intranuclear bridging. You see this, or you see this thin bridge over here? So this is intranuclear bridging, and this you confuse with MDS. Over here you see a gigantoblast. Always remember, B12 deficiency will have giant myelometamyelocytes and megakaryocytes with very hypersegmented stag antler type of cytoplasm. Gaucher cells, pseudo-Gaucher cells you might get in CDA also, and sometimes too much intramedullary erythroid lineage death can give it in other type of diseases also. MDS, look for micromegakaryocyte always. Alright, if you are thinking MDS, either get secondary MDS due to infection, etc., treatment, drug therapy ruled out, or look for micromegakaryocyte. Okay. See, this is B12. You are getting a similar, sieve-like appearance, but you get giant myelometamyelocytes also, which you won't get there. See, this entire panel over here is erythroid dysplasia with binucleation, multinucleation, gigantoblast, which you can get in anything. See this? This if you get, then you think it is CDA. So that was a smaller image. This is a larger image of the same. Now let me tell you something. This feature, this you can get in MDS also, but this is quite typical of a CDA. Okay. So, and this you need to look for in a B12 deficiency. So this is the paper. This paper discusses in detail about CDA. So what I've told you is about CDA, about the 3 most important differentials, and then how you approach the case. You draw PS, you find megaloblastic changes with normal retic, and the iron might be normal to raised if there's too much therapy given. Okay, while in B12 when there's a combined nutrition deficiency, the retic response will be low, the iron might be low because and B12 will be low. In MDS, the iron is increased, so we look for iron in a slide of MDS. Normally MDS, you look for micromegs. In CDA, you just have to look for megaloblastic features, dyspoesis in erythroid lineage and other lineages normal. In megaloblastosis, all the 3 lineages affected, but you won't get micromegakaryocyte. What you'll get is stag antler appearance of the megakaryocyte. So these are the 3 close differentials that you're going to come across in your routine practice, and that is why I took CDA. So next time I'm going to come back with the topic of cytopath, and hopefully with that good news that I was telling you about, hopefully I'll come back with it the next lecture. So I hope you enjoy it, and please keep giving me the love and support that you have been giving me till now. Thank you.